Right. Welcome to your next big thing. I'm sitting here with Benin Allen, who I'm very excited to speak with today. Benin and I kind of found each other through a viral LinkedIn post that you did on the topic of your career reinvention from the US
Yeah.
Navy to the private sector back home after 3 years with active duty tours. And we're going to talk today about how you developed your career as a surface warfare officer and then successfully pivoted back to a civilian private sector role where you're currently in a general manager position at Love's Travel Stops, which is a
Yeah.
fantastic family owned brand since 1964. Folks internationally who've never had the chance to visit a Love's Travel Stop, this is quite a large enterprise company. They have 40,000 employees per public data, and in 2019 had 20 billion in revenue with 600 locations. So today, you're going to learn from Benin about how he successfully bridged to his next big thing and really landed in his new career in the private sector after 3 years of very challenging work, very interesting work as a surface warfare officer serving in the Atlantic for the US Navy. So, Benin, welcome to our program.
Hey, thank you so much, Neil. It's an honor to be on the show, and I'm really hoping to just give some inspiration to somebody else who's also looking to make a pivot, maybe where I was, either at the start, the middle, or the end of a military career, or someone maybe that's not even in the military that's just looking to, step out, branch out, try something new, and challenge themselves. So,
Absolutely. And when I spoke with you to get to know you a little bit more, your positive attitude, your discipline really stood out to me. And so I think folks will have a lot to learn and get inspired by, no matter where they're at currently or what they're doing in the public sector, serving in the armed forces or in the private sector. So I wanted to start
yeah.
with how you went directly from finishing your bachelor's degree to entering the US Navy. And I had a different path because I had the luxury to go play around in the economy, apply to jobs, work for small
Yes.
startups, had some ups and downs. But you went straight into a serving in an active duty role. What was your mentality? How did you take on that challenge without feeling overwhelmed?
So, first and foremost, I decided, hey, I wanted to give back. I wanted to be a part of a larger community, a larger role where I had an impact. My grandfather had served, my uncle had served, my cousin had served, and I felt like it would be something that would challenge me and I'll be able to provide value. So as I was in school, I went to Norfolk State University. I was in honors college there, and I felt like I wanted to push myself. I felt like classes and everything were going well, and I wanted to challenge myself and grow as an individual. Decision by faith, I went down to the on-site, recruiting office for our reserve officer training corps. So that's the ROTC. So those are individuals who are looking to go into the military as an officer once you have your bachelor's degree. So I went down there. I talked to the person in charge down in the office, got my application, submitted it. So
Right.
when you
Okay.
go in, when you go in, you really don't have a title yet. You're just a division officer. You're given authority over a division. It can be anywhere from 15, 20 people, 10 people, all the way up to like 60, 70 people that, you're managing and instructing. From there, you're working on qualifications to obtain that service welfare officer. So,
Yeah, so you had the ROTC background, and then leadership and people management, so to speak, is
yeah.
such a specific skill set that I did not have direct opportunities in until I was at least, 5 years into maybe 7 years into my private sector career. So how did you, as a young man stepping out from university, find the inspiration to be a leader of other brave men and women aboard a US Navy vessel?
Well, Neil, it first starts with yourself. So, one of my favorite core values from the U.S. Navy is to know yourself and seek self improvement. So, you can't lead others if you can't lead yourself. You can't be disciplined with others if you can't discipline yourself. And it was such a privilege and an honor to step into a leadership role like that because it was so challenging. But I just trusted and just knew that I could do it, that I would get the help and the support that I needed, and that I would make it work. That was my mentality. I can reach out to some mentors. But the leadership principles and the resiliency and the drive and the desire that I believe I had could take me a long way. and then I'll learn the technicals along the way. That was
Yeah.
my mentality.
Yeah. And you're very humble, Benin. You did successfully become an SWO, surface warfare officer. So this includes very advanced engineering topics and operations topics like radar systems, communications, electronic warfare, engine propulsion, all of the navigation. So how did you tackle this kind of knowledge base? Like, how did you show a willingness to learn also when you interacted with your superiors?
Well, I know you saying that just now really it brought me back to the fact that I did really learn a lot. And I think initially going into it, I tried not to overwhelm myself with the thought that it was a lot. I just take it section by section. So if I had to learn about an engineering topic, or I had to learn about electronic warfare, or how different navigation systems work, being able to take a ship from port stateside all the way across the Atlantic, I just focused on what was in front of me, and I would just study. I would read manuals. I would talk to people that were the experts in it, because you had some on the ship that was their specialty. So they're more, they may be even a enlisted member, but they're more senior, more tenure. And I would seek these people out, and I would talk to them and just have them give me the knowledge they had, and then I would go back and research it for myself. But I would take my time with it and try not to overwhelm myself. As far as dealing with my superiors on this, a lot of times I've learned that people, even in the military, they'll have grace for you if you do your due diligence. So I would never present something to my commanding officer and just tell him, hey, I don't know, or hey, I don't know what to do here, because that's dishonoring to them. Because as an officer, as a leader, you need to put the time in to try to figure out everything you can beforehand, and a lot of times you do. And at least you can present them with the fact that, hey, sir, hey, ma'am, I was able to find this. I'm still researching. I'm still looking into it, but I have this information. You can present them with something. Instead of you presenting them with problems, you present them with some solutions or a plan that you have to solve the problem. So that's how I would approach it when there were things I didn't know.
I really relate to that one. When I had my move into my sales career, my first manager told me, we are breaking new ground here. We are doing challenging work. So there will be times when we don't know what the next step is, but
Mhm.
take that extra preparatory step of thinking about possibilities and maybe select or recommend a solution which seems the most appealing, justify it with
Yeah.
data. So I can hear that in what you're saying here. And
Yes.
I think that's a really important leadership skill about autonomy, ownership, and I can see you demonstrating that. So I want to move with our audience here to talk about the 3 years you spent and then how you decided to pivot to a civilian role coming out of that, especially because a lot of us are considering parallel career options. Ooh, should I maybe plan a transition from here to there? So how did you get thinking about maybe planning a transition, Benny?
So yeah, I would say I'm always thinking and planning about the next step for myself, and the values that I learned in the United States Navy were just invaluable, to be honest. But ultimately, I knew that the military wasn't going to be a career for me as well. Like, I never went in planning to do 20 years or 10 years. I knew I wanted to serve a tour and potentially use those skill sets and values out in the civilian sector. So that was my mindset. As I started to learn things, as I started to build my confidence, seeing, wow, hey, this challenge that I had that I was freaking out about, I just accomplished this. I just did this. I just did this in 9 months. It takes people 3 years to do what I just did in 9 months. I just did this. It started giving me that confidence to know, hey, I can make it out in the civilian sector.
That's so cool. So you mentioned about how when you were thinking long term and you're like, okay, I've completed these 3 years and this is a real milestone moment. So you were thinking about, do I do another three? And most folks don't
Yeah.
understand that it's not like an on demand type of thing with the US Navy. Like, you make commitments into the future
Yes.
and you have to,
Yes.
right? So these are big, big decisions. And you said to me, if I do 6 years here, I will be really deep into this and then I might spend 20. So I loved, Benin, how you thought with this long-term lens of like, Benin's life and career with 20 years military service or alternatives. And you found such a compelling alternative. So tell me about how you put these steps into action to start building a bridge to the private sector.
It was looking at my life long term to see, hey, Benin at 40 years old, Benin at, 45, what does his life look like? What is he married? Does he have kids? Is he traveling? Is working at a job? And asking myself these questions and realizing, hey, okay, now what are some examples of, some other people that I know personally at this age that are like still in the military? What does their life look like and things? Do I want that type of life for myself? There were just some things that I saw that I said, hey, I want something different for myself at 30 or at 40. And that allowed me, was that deep groundwork to actually give me a sense of direction to go in. Again, these were decisions where, I always revert back to, my faith. That's a very pivotal aspect of my life in every decision I made going into the military, getting out. There's been times where I've had to ground myself. I've had to sit, I've had to think, do some deep work, some quiet work, some meditation to get into a headspace where I can make a clear, sound decision. Our life is the sum total of the decisions that we make. So wherever we end up, there was a decision along the way that we made or had to make that landed us there.
Yeah, and I really like how with this decision as well as the decision and how you built your confidence going in, you said it starts from me, Neil. It starts within. And I think that's so
Mhm.
great at a time when we have a lot of distractions on social media about what's this other person doing. This other person changed
Yes.
their job. This other person got promoted. But what am I going to do that's going to set me up to live the life I want to live, that's fulfilling, that's satisfying, and also where I can give back, as you talked about. So
Exactly.
did you find support? How did you engage other resources to help you build a bridge to your next big thing?
100%. So once the wheels started getting turning and I was thinking about my next steps and I decided, okay, hey, I'm actually going to be resigning my commission. Now, you can't just resign from the military like you just go into a job and put your 2 weeks in.
Yeah.
They have a quota. They have a quota. They have people to backfill. These are the leaders of our nation and our military. They need to make sure these positions are getting filled, and they need to know in advance enough time. So typically, no less than 9 months out. 9 months out, they need to know because they start sending out orders and things like that about 8 months before your next assignment. So if you don't submit anything in, oh, you're out of luck. Or now you're putting yourself in a situation where you're putting pressure on your leaders and putting them, stressing them out more with everything they
Yeah.
have going on, trying to help you. So 9 months out, I had all of my paperwork submitted, and thankfully on the ship, as far as my career progression, there was a more senior officer who was also transitioning out of the military and very smart guy. He was the chief engineer on our ship. He was an O 04, so lieutenant commander, and didn't really talk much. He was more a stoic guy, but we ended up connecting on that point because we read a lot of books on, Ryan Holiday, and these different various topics about just as a as a man, just being able to sometimes control yourself and your feelings and emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we ended up really connecting over a book because we didn't talk much. One night I was, up in his office. We're talking about a book, and I just said, "Hey, sir, I hear you're getting out, you're transitioning out. I'm wondering what that's like. What are you going to do? Because you're a oh 04. You've been in like, 12 years, man, 10 years."
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, "Hey, I'm partnering with this military recruiting agency here, and what they do is they take you through civilian sector interviews. They give you training. There's books to read, PCS to corporate America. Like there's all these things." And he's like, I'm partnering with them right now. He said, "I've been partnering with them about 4 or 5 months." He's like, "I'm getting out, a year from now, and they're going to set me up these interviews." He's like, "It's something to look into." So I said, "All right, cool." Didn't really think much of it. Still unsure if I'm going back to school or not or whatnot, but I put in my email, put my phone number in. They called me the next night, and I
Okay.
thought that was so cool because I wasn't expecting to get a call back that fast. Called me back the next day. They said, "Hey, we're considering you as one of our candidates." I said, "You're considering me as a candidate? Like, what does this mean?" They said, "Hey, They did the phone interview. They said, "Hey, let's meet. We're doing our first round of interviews for our candidates. So 2 weeks from now, come out, talk to your mentor, and we'll go from there." And like the rest was history. I went out there. I met with my first mentor, and we discussed my goals, my career goals, my aspirations. He said, "I think it'd be a perfect fit." And the process started right there. And we just started. I locked in. I read all the material I needed to read. I did the mock interviews, the study groups, whatever I needed to do, all while still, maintaining my military job
And
until I trained.
yeah, so Benin, you did this on top of your service. You were reading, learning, studying on their learning paths for pathways to private sector. And then because so private sector interviews, right? Like most of us within the first few years after we graduated, we don't have much job interview experience. And I work with people on getting ready for job interviews. It's always a nerve-wracking thing. So tell me about that final day. Did you have 7 job interviews with 7 possible companies? Like what was that? What was your mentals like at that point? That
So,
sounds
so
tough,
like
man.
we joke and like we were saying it was like the Super Bowl. It's like, yo, these 9 months I
Yeah.
spent training. And I mean, Minu, I got to the point I was recording myself. I would record my interview answers and listen to them back and say, hey, you know what, I need to take that out, or I need it, because that's how you're instructed. Because you think sometimes in
Man.
an interview you'll know what to say, but you sometimes you don't. It loses you. And
Yeah.
you need to be able to convey, in an articulate manner that, hey, my skill sets translate over. I can add value to your
Yeah.
organization. And that's hard, to be able to make that really, because you have someone, hey, you were in the military, but I don't, okay, you're telling me that you want to, get in sales, or you want to be a general manager. How does that correlate? You were working on ships. Like, they don't understand. So you have to be able to articulate that. So I went back to that training, that education. I know that repetition is key, so I would just read, study. I had some great
Mm.
friends that were in a group with that it was all virtual, but I would talk
Yeah.
to them, and we would do interviews back and forth and say, hey man, I think you should take that out. Hey, don't say that. And I just locked in again 6, 7 months of doing this and reading. I had 4 interviews on the first day, and I had 3 on the second day. And then on that last interview, my seventh one, they were the only company to straight up, loves. They offered me on the call. Everyone else would say, hey, we really like you, we're gonna reach back out. They were like, no, we want
On
to
the
go ahead and
spot.
offer you
Yeah.
on the spot. So yeah, so that was really cool.
We all want to take our skills where we're wanted, right? Where our talent is
That's,
recognized. So that must, how did you feel like when you told your family that you had that offer in hand?
it felt amazing. It really did. Just knowing that I had that offer, it was empowering, man, because there was no guarantee. There's no guarantee that just because you partner with this company, you're going to get a job. You still have to interview. You still have to show you're capable. They still have to see that you're a good fit. So I was extremely happy because I had worked 9 months for this. And at this point, my resignation and everything was already in. There was no, I was pretty much out of the military. Even though I was still in, like, legally, I was out. I didn't have another assignment because I had resigned 8 months ago. So being able to tell my family, hey, like I have, I think I had 3 offers, but being able to say that, it was amazing because my mom, she's a little nervous. She just cares about, her youngest son, to make
Of
sure he has
course.
job security and everything. And when I told her initially I was getting out, she's like, are you sure, with the economy and all this stuff? And I
Yeah.
was like, hey, mom, I think this is what's best for me. So she was like, all right, we praying and everything. So, when I was able to say, hey, I got this offer, it was like, wow. She's like, I knew you could do it. And it was very amazing feeling.
Man, I love that point about talking to mom because every time I share like a career update, um,
Yeah.
something like on LinkedIn or whatever, I'm like, yeah, oh, I'm going to say it like this. I'm going to say it like that. It's going to be great. I got this photo. It's like that. But you know what really gets me, Ben, is like, how am I going to share with my parents that I quit or that like I'm
Yeah,
still
yeah.
looking, that or that I didn't get it, the one I took that I really wanted. It's really important because our moms love and care about us. They want the best for us as their sons, right? So you landed in this new role. How did you find it relating with your coworkers once you were out of the Navy? I know when I went from Amazon to another company, I had to have a little bit of time to like
Yeah.
change my vocabulary a bit, like keep what I had learned. But how did you find fitting in and also relating with others on the job?
No, to be honest, that was the part that I was the most concerned about. I didn't worry about the move. I didn't worry about the transitioning. I didn't worry about the financial. The part was, okay, how do I relate to these people? How do they relate to me? Because I never have worked really with just a civilian sector in this job sector. Where all I know is the military training, deployments, and let me just tell you right now. So all my military brothers and sisters out there, we know there's a certain way that we talk and we handle things on ships and barracks and stuff like that, where you have to be professional. But I would say for me, I've always strided and prided myself on being a professional. So it wasn't that hard for me when I transitioned over because I was still kept the same professional demeanor that I have at work. And to be honest, I learned, okay, wow, some of these people, they're similar like the people I met in the military. Because you hear about certain things, oh, you come out the military and you're very militarized, very people are scared of that, it's intimidating and, things like that.
Yeah.
And being fresh out, it was a little bit of that because I carry, I carry that with honor, that I was able to
Mm.
serve. I've always feel like I've worked well with people, even difficult people. I learned that different people have different roles in your life. So just because you may not like someone here, okay, put them in a different role. We have that control to manage those boundaries with our relationships. And it really comes down to us. If I'm in a position where, you know, someone's feeling a certain type of way about my military, experience or how I am, what role or position do I have this person in that I'm dealing with this? Am I sharing too much? Am I, you know what I mean? So it really wasn't that hard once I got in it, but that was the most part I was the most nervous about is how do I relate? How do I communicate coming from this different world? And now I'm a civilian, and it's not that I'm worrying about our enemies and stress and pressure of going across the Atlantic. But now there's metrics to meet, there's quotas to meet, there's sales I have, to manage schedules to get my play. You know what I mean? And we're worrying
Of
about
course.
diesel gallons and hot dogs,
Yeah, for
not
sure.
engine casualties and enemies on radar. So it was making that transition in my brain.
Damn. Yeah.
Um,
I wanted to
yeah.
stay on that people topic for a minute. So, for folks in our audience who are managers of large organizations, they may be responsible for 30, 60, 100 plus people, maybe in multiple sites. Is there anything you learned, Benin, about how to be approachable and authentic in a way that, we go through times of change, disruption? How did you make sure that people could approach you and share something they needed, whether it was at work or outside of work as a person?
100%. Now, I think it starts with extending that hand, extending that offer first to let people know that you are approachable. Because sometimes, people will look at you and they can form assumptions, and we all do it. You can't help it. Sometimes you maybe have some preconceived notions that you formed off of individuals' look, and until they open their mouths and start to share what's in their heart and in their mind, you don't really know. So I'm sure there were some people that probably, I'm 6'1", 215 pounds. I've got tattoos. I'm sure there have been some people that might have thought, oh man, this guy at the military, he's probably scary. And then they talk to me and realize he's actually an approachable person. I can actually express myself to him. And I let that be known to my team members up front. Is that, hey, we're all in this together. We may wear different hats, but I can't do my job unless y'all are doing your jobs well. And I want the workplace to be somewhere that is cohesive, that's fun, that's peaceful, because we spend more of our time here than we do with our families. And I invited them in on some of the decision making processes. So everything wasn't just do this and that. It was, hey, we are doing this because. So I would let them know that we're not just meeting our metrics and meeting our quota because we're money hungry. We're meeting our metrics and meeting our quota by doing right by the customer. Because we do right by the customer, because we have attention to detail, as a result of that, our revenue grows. That means that we have more opportunities for career expansion, career progression for you all. And I would just try to convey that as much as possible. And then also understand that everybody is not like me. Everybody doesn't think the way I do. Everybody doesn't process the way I do, but that doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't make them a bad employee. They have their own way of how they process. And I think just understanding people's different personalities, how to work with them, and then where to put your team members, because they may not be good at slot, but they may be good at wide receiver or running back. And
That's right.
understanding, hey, if someone has a willing attitude and they show up and maybe they're not performing that well, instead of just firing them or getting rid of them, let me look at myself as a leader am I communicating the best I can? Am I being the best leader? Am I coaching this person? And if I'm not doing a good job, I need to be better at that and then maybe transition into a different role so my team can run well. Those things have been pivotal for me as I've learned in
I
my career.
I like how you talked about that want to. Seeing people who have that want to, even if their skill set doesn't quite match up, and then helping unlock their potential and really, challenging them in a way that they can grow into, right? So creating
Mhm.
space for that growth to happen. It might be changing their role responsibilities. It might be having, a difficult conversation, but a well prepared
Mhm.
conversation about how that performance is going. So yeah, I just wanted to ask that because one of the aspects of the surface warfare officer I read about is managing people in high stress situations. So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, you know a lot about
yeah,
that. Yep.
yeah, and I just think that's really great what you worked on of establishing that culture and that personal responsibility you took for being approachable.
Yes.
So I want to close on that and ask you now, Benin, how many years are you into your private sector transition? Yeah.
Yep. So I am 1 year and 8 months as of today.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah,
That's
over
amazing.
8 months. Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, how do you continue to challenge yourself to grow? I know that you recently went to a leadership conference that was sponsored where there was travel provided by the company. Do you also do like certain types of skills training? Because how are you building resilience? There's so much that's changing in private sector jobs. Like, what steps have you taken that maybe someone else could take to build their own career resilience?
100%. You never stop learning. The moment you stop learning, things die. I would just say that because you stop growing as an individual, whether it's career, marriage, or whatever it is, you have to continue to grow and learn. And for me, I like to challenge myself. I read a lot of material about sales. I'm getting better about sales, how to be a better communicator. I've taken courses. I've paid to take a technology sales course to just understand some more of the
Yeah.
business acumen and then to understand what's going on more at a higher level than just the day-to-day transactional sales because we're on the ground. What are the conversations being had, business to business, business to consumer, these different contracts, the negotiation, the sales cycles and the sales cadences. I'm getting a better understanding of this now, and it's helping me be a more effective leader while I'm in a role where I'm dealing more with the public and I'm directly dealing with my employees. And my goal right now is 2 books a month. Coming in 2025, it was 1 book a month last year, and YouTube. I just like to go on there to LinkedIn and just learn. If there's something I'm interested in, I read about it or I watch a video on it, for sure, or take a course. So
That
that's
is
what I've
so
been doing.
cool. This has been a really fun conversation for me. I really relate to a lot of the challenges that you took on from that mindset. Because whenever I had certain like setbacks, it was really about refocusing myself, staying with it, staying disciplined, and following through. So I love those aspects from your story. I wanted to just finish as we should on God and family together and ask about anything your siblings have said about you. Like you're 18 months in, you're building your life, you're building your career now. Are there
Mhm.
any special moments that you got to share with your siblings catching up in these past kind of 18 months?
Oh, 100%. Just being able to be home and being able to have the freedom and my flexibility in my calendar. And the most important thing with my wife, me and my wife like to travel, and whether it's a staycation, like somewhere local or like an actual one, it's been nice to not have to submit like a request kit up the chain of command just to get like approval for things like that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
So it's great to be able to just say, hey, I'm taking care of business here. I've got a plan for my team members while I'm out. I have the PTO. You know what I mean? I'm not taking it
yeah,
out
yeah,
outside of that. And then hey, let my GM know, hey boss, hey, I'm taking the lady out. We're gonna do a look and I'll be back. I really love
yeah,
that aspect of it and being able to make the moments that I'm here for. I missed my brother's wedding, my older brother, and I went on deployment. I was on deployment. It was during COVID. I couldn't attend. I was on the ship. So being able to be here to be able to make opportunities like that and things, it really means the world to me. So
Wow. Closing remarks. If there was someone who is currently serving but is unsure about trying to pivot to the private sector, what would you say to them as they try to build up that courage to take that step if that's right for them?
yeah, I would say, you know in your heart and mind what type of life you desire. And if you're making a decision based off of fear, that's not a good decision. You don't ever make decisions based off of fear. It needs to be a thought out decision. It needs to be right and true to you at your core. And if you're scared or you're nervous about making the pivot, make the pivot, go for it. You have the rest of your life, God willing, to figure it out and say, hey, I tried it and it didn't work, versus being stuck somewhere where it was not true to you at your core. And now you're in a position you don't want to be. And not only you are suffering from this, but the people around you are suffering because you're not in the right headspace for it. So take the leap of faith and go for it. That's what I'll say. You can do it.
Benin Allen, ladies and gentlemen, follow him on LinkedIn, support his work, and you can also check out in the show notes some of the agencies and companies we mentioned. Get yourself support, find community. There are resources that you can tap into for any kind of career reinvention you need to make. I know I've made a few in my time, and you are not in this alone. So do not put too much pressure on yourself. Put the right amount of pressure with the right amount of support so that you can follow through, because these things take time, can be months. I've had 18-month career reinventions for myself. So Benin, again, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thank you, Neil. I appreciate you. Thank you for your time.